Hello, I am the Earl Grey Reader back with another short story podcast. I once again share a modern Japanese folktale by the esteemed storyteller Naoko Awa. It is entitled The Fox's Window from the book of the same name. Years ago, I got lost in the woods on the way to my cottage. As I walked along familiar paths with a rifle on my shoulder, I let my mind drift back to the past, thinking about a girl I once loved. When I came around a bend, I noticed the sky was dazzling like a polished blue crystal. The ground also appeared tinged with blue. I froze for a moment and blinked a few times. The familiar cedar forest had disappeared, and I stood in an open field of bellflowers stretching as far as the eye could see. I held my breath. When did I take the wrong turn that led me to a place like this? Was there always such a field in these woods? I'd better go back now, I told myself. The scenery seemed too beautiful to be real, making me dizzy. But a light breeze blew over the endless flower field. The view was so inviting that I wanted to stay longer. I'm going to rest a bit. I sat down and wiped the sweat off my brow. Then a white figure appeared and scurried before my eyes. I sprang to my feet. The bellflowers swayed as the white animal ran like a ball rolling downhill. It was a white fox, still a cub. I picked up my rifle and ran after him. But the fox was fast. No matter how hard I ran, I couldn't catch up. I could have shot him with the rifle, but I wanted to find the fox's den to kill the mother fox. When the cub came to a hill, he suddenly disappeared among the blue flowers. I stood still, feeling as if I had lost sight of the midday moon. He managed to get away from me, I thought. Just then, I heard a strange voice behind me. Welcome. Surprised, I turned and found a small shop. Over the entrance was a sign in blue letters: Bellflower House, Dye Shop. Beneath it stood a young boy in a deep blue apron tending the shop. Well, the fox changed himself into a boy, I thought, trying to hold back my laughter. I decided to pretend to be fooled in order to catch the fox. May I rest a bit inside? I asked, putting on my best fake smile. Please, come in. The fox in human guise smiled and ushered me inside, where 5 white birch chairs surrounded a beautiful table on the dirt floor. Nice place you've got here. I sat in one of the chairs and took off my cap. Thank you. The fox made a polite bow, placing a cup of tea in front of me. Dye shop? What do you dye here? I asked, half teasing. Anything you like. Would you like me to dye this cap? The fox said, grabbing my cap off the table. No, certainly not. I snatched it back from him. I'm not going to wear a blue cap. I see. The fox looked me over from head to toe. How about your muffler? Or your socks? Pants? Jacket? Sweater? I grimaced. Why did he want to dye my things? Maybe foxes are the same as humans, I thought. In other words, the fox wanted to do business with me. I nodded to myself. After being offered tea, I felt obliged to buy something. Just as I slipped my hand into my pocket to take out a handkerchief, the fox let out a sharp cry. Yes, I'll dye your fingers. My fingers? No, you must be joking. My voice didn't hide my anger. Well, it's a wonderful thing to dye your fingers. The fox smiled and opened his small palms in front of me. His hands were pale, except for the thumbs and index fingers, which were dyed blue. The fox drew his fingers together, making a diamond-shaped window. Then he held it in front of my eyes. "Why don't you look through?" he said cheerfully. "Huh?" I blinked. "Why don't you take a look inside? Just a peek." I reluctantly peeked through the window made by his fingers. I was astonished at what I saw. There was a white fox inside the small window. It was a beautiful mother fox. She sat still, her tail straight up. It looked like a picture of a fox framed by the boy's fingers. What in the world?" I stammered, too surprised to say anything else. "That's my mother," the fox whispered. I remained silent. Bang! Went a shot, and she was dead. It's a long time ago. Bang? With a rifle? Yes, with a rifle. The fox dropped his hands and looked down. He continued, not realizing that he had revealed his true identity. "I just wanted to see my mother again. Just once more. Naturally, I miss her very much." I nodded, feeling sorry for the fox. "One autumn day like today, the bellflowers in the wind said in chorus, 'Why don't you dye your fingers and make a window with them?' I picked a lot of bellflowers and dyed my fingers. Then look!" The fox straightened his arms and made a window with his fingers again. "I don't feel lonely anymore, because I can see my mother through this window any time." Moved, I nodded repeatedly. I was all alone in the world, too. "I want a window like that!" I gave a childlike cry. Then the fox's face beamed with joy. "I'll do it right away! Please put your hands there." I placed my hands palm down on the table. The fox brought a dish filled with blue flower dye and a brush. He dipped the brush into the dye and began to paint my fingers. Before long, my thumbs and index fingers were tinted the blue hue of bellflowers. "Now it's done. Why don't you make a window?" the fox said. As my heart throbbed with excitement, I made a window with my fingers, timidly bringing it over my eyes. Then a young girl came into view inside my small window. She wore a floral print dress and a straw hat with ribbon trim. Her face looked familiar. There was a mole under her left eye. "Oh, that's her!" I jumped up in the air. She was someone I loved long ago, but she was lost to me forever. "See? Isn't it wonderful to dye your fingers?" The fox flashed an innocent smile. "Yes, it's wonderful," I answered. I felt through my pockets for money, but I couldn't find a cent. "I have no money with me, but you can have anything you want. My cap, jacket, sweater, or muffler," I said. Then the fox said, "Please give me your rifle." "My rifle? Well, I don't know," I hesitated. But when I thought about the wonderful window the fox had given me, I wanted to be generous with him. "Okay, it's yours." I handed my rifle to the fox. "Thank you very much." The fox bowed, received the rifle, and gave me Naoko mushrooms in a plastic bag. "Please put them in your miso soup tonight," he said. I asked the fox the way back. Then he said the cedar forest was behind the shop, and my cottage was about 200 yards into the woods. I thanked him and went around behind the shop. Then I found the familiar cedar forest. The autumn sun shone warmly on my path as I walked through the silent forest. I was very impressed by this discovery. I had thought I knew the woods very well. But I didn't know about this secret path, and a splendid flower field, and a friendly fox's shop. Feeling wonderful, I began to hum a tune. As I walked, I made a window with my fingers again. This time, a thin rain was drizzling inside the window. The familiar yard came into view through the haze. Under the veranda, facing the yard, a pair of small boots lay, getting wet in the rain. Those are mine, I thought, my heart pounding. I expected my mother to appear and put away the boots. She would be wearing a long-sleeved apron and a white towel over her head. "Oh dear, you can't leave them like this," I could almost hear her voice. In my mother's vegetable garden, a patch of shiso plants was getting soaked by the drizzle. I wondered if she would come out into the yard to pick the leaves. A soft light seeped from the house. From time to time, I heard children's laughter mixed with the music from the radio. The voices belonged to me and my sister, who was now dead. I gave a deep sigh and dropped my hands. The house I grew up in had burned down, and that yard didn't exist anymore. What a wonderful window, I thought. As I walked through the woods, I thought I wanted to keep it forever. And yet, what was the first thing I did when I arrived home? Out of habit, I washed my hands. When I realized what I had done, it was too late. The blue dye on my fingers had been washed away. No matter how many times I made a window with my clean fingers, I only saw the ceiling of the cottage. I sank down into a chair, my head drooping over the table. That night, I forgot to eat the Naoko mushrooms the fox gave me. The next day, I decided to go back to the fox's place to get my fingers dyed again. I made a lot of sandwiches for the fox, and I went into the cedar forest. But no matter how far I walked, I was still among the cedar trees. The flower field was nowhere in sight. I wandered through the woods for days. Whenever I heard a fox's cry, whenever I saw a white figure moving in the woods, I pricked up my ears and looked in that direction, but I never saw the fox again. Even now, I still make windows with my fingers, wondering if I will see something. People often tease me, saying I have an odd habit. That was The Fox's Window by Naoko Awa, read by permission of the translator Toshiya Kamei. This is a beautiful story of love and loss. They remind us how important our memories of loved ones are. I appreciated how the fox was not bitter at his loss, or at the man who may have even shot his mother, but he was able to make him empathize with his little window. Empathy is something we all need. I hope you enjoyed this reading. I am the Earl Grey Reader. Till next time.